Today we continue with our study on the Suttas, ST 41, which the theme of which is Samatha and Vipassana. Today we go on to chapter 14, ST 41.14, Himavanta Sutta, the Himalaya Discourse. Himavanta is the Pali term for the Himalayas. The title shows that it is a kind of simile or parable that if you do your meditation very well, you have the power to even shatter mountains. You can even shatter the Himalayan mountains. Of course, this is really a huge idea. It's like some of those space movies, science fiction stories you've seen. So here we have to examine this kind of title from the Sutta, Anguttara Sutta A 6.24, and ask ourselves, what level is the Buddha talking here? If you look at the Book of Tools, the Dukkha Nipata of the Anguttara, the Buddha says whenever you look at the Sutta, it's very important that you don't misrepresent him. That means you've got to ask yourself, what level is the Buddha talking here? When you talk about shattering mountain, does he literally mean that? Whatever is not Dharma, in other words, impermanence, suffering, non-self, things like that, when words, conventional words like man, woman, mountain, that is a worldly way of talking, even figurative way of talking. So when we say this meditation is so powerful it can shatter mountains, it's very similar to other religions that say faith can move mountains. It's just that the Buddhists kind of almost presage this sort of statement and say, well, in Buddhism, if you do your meditation well, you attain fourth jhana, you attain psychic powers, you'll be able to shatter mountains. In other words, here the meaning is that mental powers are far greater than worldly powers. And always remember, when we talk about the world, in the early Buddhism, what do we mean? When we talk about the world, we mean the six senses, the five physical senses and the mind. And this is how we perceive a mountain. We imagine a mountain in our minds. We name it a mountain. So in a sense, if we understand the nature of language and words, we go beyond such ideas, and we know they're just words. So we have gone beyond that view. We have transcended the view of a mountain, so to speak. That's one way of looking at it. Can we literally destroy mountains? Well, I suppose if you look at the ancient stories, it is possible. But that's not the point of the story. That's not the point of this teaching here. Meditation is not about destroying mountains. We are saying here that this wisdom and the power of meditation is so great. You begin to understand all these things which words can do. In other words, you can play around with words, but ultimately the meaning is what we put into it, and we have to discover that meaning. In other words, this is one of the problems in religious language. A lot of people say a lot of great things about their teachings. Sometimes they themselves take these words on a literal level, thus deluding themselves. Or worse, the followers, the audience, take these words literally, and so come under the power of those teachers in a worldly sense, and that defeats the whole purpose of being spiritual and religious even. And we become enslaved by words, by worldliness, and the religion fails, hurts and harms people. So in a sense, we should not take the word of the teaching too seriously, in a sense. I say in a sense because we should not be licentious and say, oh, we can do anything we like. That again is one extreme. And to say we do nothing at all is on the other extreme. So the middle way is to look at these words and ask ourselves, what do they mean? What do they mean, right? What level is the sutta talking here? What teaching is being highlighted here? The meaning of the teaching. The Pali word here is atta. Now what's interesting in Pali is this word atta also means purpose. Now in English you have two words meaning purpose, and they're quite different things. But in Pali you have one word for both aspects, atta. Purpose. Atta also means goodness. So what do we do with this understanding that we have? Let's not make this too philosophical, too big. Let's just direct this to this sutta, Himavanta Sutta. What do we do here? Here the sutta is about samadhi, about mental stillness. So in other words, our purpose is to be able to meditate well, build up our meditation, so that we can move mountains, destroy mountains even. So this is a manner of talking. When you meditate, the mountains are no more there, right? Of course, many of you probably know those popular Zen stories and koans, right? Before a person meditates, a mountain is a mountain. While you're meditating, a mountain is not a mountain. The mountain has been destroyed. And then when you come out of your meditation, the mountain is a mountain again. So this is a very clever way of playing with words to help the initiated, the wise, to understand the purpose of meditation. Here again, people get very excited when they hear all these very clever words. They say, "Wow, this is great," and they think that's it, And they go around actually very proud of the fact they've heard all these famous sayings, but nothing else happens. So we are like we're like parrots, just parroting all these things. Are not very helpful. In other words, you've got to find out the meaning of this and then follow up with practice. Before we meditate, mountains are mountains. On a conventional level, we have words, ideas, we say this is a mountain, mountains are formed like this, we have physical geography, we have orogenesis and all those big terms talking about movement of the earth and so on and so forth. Many ways of talking about mountains. These are ways of looking at the world. We're not too concerned with these things because we're not studying physical geography. We're going to let go of the world, we're going to let go of the senses for a while. So in our meditation, we have let go of all the five senses at least. So we're not concerned about this physical aspect of mountain anymore. So the mountain is not a mountain. No more ideas. Letting go of views. We are totally at peace. That's the idea here. When you're meditating, the mountain is not a mountain. Then when you come out of your meditation, as you progress in your meditation, in other words, you also cultivate insight after your mind is calm and clear. Then you begin to understand how we use concepts. The mountain is just a word we use to describe a certain feature. For example, we even say, I have a mountain of work. So there we apply it figuratively. So the mountain is a mountain again in the sense that when you come out of your meditation, you understand the usages of words, and more deeply you know these mountains are nothing but the four elements: earth, water, fire, wind, for example. All these mountains are all impermanent. You begin to see all these concepts as something you see them in a universal way, in other words, according to universal characteristics, if you like, that they are impermanent, they are therefore unsatisfactory, and there is no essence or no self behind them. They are all our own perceptions, if you like. Right? So this is one way of looking at it. Now, another interesting point I'd like to highlight in this sutta is that this sutta is found in the Anguttara, A6.24. Now, let's look at the sutta itself. It's very short, so I'm going to read through it and then just tell you something more about the Anguttara. The translation is on page 146. The Himalaya Discourse, A6.24. Bhikshus, among accomplished in 6 things, might shatter the Himalayas, the king of mountains. So what is there to speak of vile ignorance? Notice the language. This meditation is so powerful. Here the Buddha is referring to, of course, attaining the 4th jhana, when you can cultivate all the psychic powers. You can use the psychic power to destroy mountains. Of course, there's a lot of energy to be used. So the Buddha is saying, if this is what you believe, why not destroy ignorance, which is not helpful at all, right? Here, ignorance which is vile, java avijja. Ignorance which brings us pain and suffering, and it's not very helpful at all. We should be destroying all these negative qualities instead of showing off psychic powers, in other words. So meditation is not about psychic powers, it's not about abilities, it's about being clear of defilements, purifying our body and mind. This is very important. What are the 6? What are the 6 ways to practice a meditation? Here, bhikshus among is skilled in attaining samadhi. Samadhissa samapati kusalo hoti. He is skilled in remaining in samadhi. Samadhissa titi kusalo hoti. He is skilled in emerging from samadhi. Samadhissa uttana kusalo hoti. He is skilled in keeping himself fit for samadhi. Samadhissa kalita kusalo hoti. He is skilled in the resort for samadhi. Samadhissa gochara kusala hoti. He is skilled in samadhi resolution. Samadhissa abhinihara kusala hoti. Bhikshus among accomplished in these 6 things might shatter the Himalayas, the king of mountains, so what is there to speak of? Vile ignorance. So it's not about shattering mountains, although the title is about the Himalayas. It's about shattering ignorance. It's about becoming awakened. Now that's all there is in this sutta. 6 things, without any commentary, without any explanation. So, this is the start of the Anguttara in the book of 6. This sutta is in the book of 6 items. What does this mean? Well, the teachings of the Anguttara, or the numerical teachings, assume that we already know the teachings of the earlier Nikayas, especially the Majjhima Nikaya and the Samyutta Nikaya. The Digha Nikaya also is very interesting, but the Anguttara Nikaya tend to be very long stories full of legendary materials and philosophical teachings, doctrines, and so on. Very impressive. It's meant to be like a prospectus for newcomers to see and be impressed and say, I would like to be a Buddhist, something like that. Yeah? In other words, the Digha Nikaya, it's a celebration of Buddhism. Of course, there are important teachings there, but they're presented in such a way, more to, what should I say, it's like a marketing policy as far as Sutta goes. And you can still select some teachings there, but they're difficult to practice because of they're given in the kind of marketing context, if you like. Take, for example, the Maha Satipatthana Sutta. You have lots of details there, and half of it is about the Four Noble Truths, kind of almost half. The first half is about the 4 focuses of mindfulness, whereas the Satipatthana Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya is about half the length. It talks about meditation directly. So that is why when I say here that Anguttara assumes that you should know the teachings of the previous Nikayas, they refer mainly to the Majjhima and the Samyutta. So, and of course the wisdom of the teacher, the commentator, reader, like yourself who have read other suttas, then you put this is your chance to put them together and then give a talk to others about this. Of course, not all the Anguttara suttas are like this. Some of the Anguttara suttas are quite long. For example, you find the Kalama Sutta or the Kesaputiya Sutta is also found here in the Anguttara, but they're quite long, complete suttas. But these are those suttas which are very short, which tend to just give you a list of things and assume that you should fill in the rest on your own. They're like reminders in your meditation. So let me try to expand on each of these 6 items and see, hopefully they will benefit you in your practice. Now, what does the sutta mean when it says we should be skilled in attaining samadhi? So here the keyword is attaining, in other words, building up samadhi. But one more thing, what is samadhi? So here it's good to at least have some working understanding of the term. Now, samadhi in modern terms, in Thailand for example, we say in Thai, Nang Samadhi, sit in samadhi. It simply means meditate. So it's just a generic term for meditation. In fact, there are many terms for meditation: samadhi, bhavana, kamatana, and so on. Okay? However, in modern terms, the word jhana is never used in terms of general meditation. However, in the suttas, we find the word jhana is also used in a broad sense of meditation also. You've got to see the context. Right? So here samadhi has a special sense of mental stillness. In a sense, it's one of the higher goals of meditation, if you like, but not the end of meditation. It's a stage you reach where your mind is very calm and then you decide what to do next. So, in other words, you can go to jhanas or you can cultivate insight. Or samadhi can be a kind of mental stillness which doesn't amount to jhana, but you feel good and happy. Alright, so I'll talk more about this towards the end of this study today, in a moment. Okay? So, let us take samadhi in the sense of mental stillness, or even mental concentration if you like. There's a bit of argument about whether the translation will be mental concentration or mental stillness. Use whichever translation you're comfortable with. Always remember it's got something to do with the mind, focusing with the mind, calming with the mind. So as your understanding grows, you'll find that it doesn't really matter what words are used. In your mind, there is this stillness. And we need to respect how people use words because they're also reflecting their own understanding. When we say that their definition is wrong, we also say that they're stupid, and that's not very nice or polite. So in a sense, we can say, okay, that's what you mean, and when you say concentration, in my mind, okay, samadhi. So that's how I understand samadhi. And you can find it that way. And as we go along, we find, as we practice, our various words begin to assume a closer and closer connection until we say, oh yeah, that's it, we actually are talking about the same thing. It's just that we're using different dialects. So if we spend our time quarreling over definitions, we'll never have time to meditate. And also, we won't be happy. You don't have happiness, you can't meditate. Right? So we must be very careful not to quarrel too much over terminology. That's for the scholars to do because they need to get paid and they're not very good in meditation. So it depends what you want to do with Buddhism. Alright, so skill in attaining samadhi. This means improving your meditation to the level of attaining mental calmness, mental concentration, mental stillness. So here, of course, we can talk a lot, but we just pick a few highlights, a few key tips, if you like. This assuming you already know some basic beginner's ideas of meditation. Right? So here, let me say, one of the key ingredients to a good meditation is to be happy when you're meditating. Of course, when you start your meditation, you might not be too happy. Something sad happened maybe. But you must learn to be able to switch to the happiness mode once you start meditating. Because happiness, these emotions, they are points of views. You've got to let go of all those thoughts. The more you meditate, the easier they become. So here, the commentaries, like the Samyutta commentary, for example, use the word ha-setva, the indicative form, which is ha-seti, meaning to make the mind happy, or simply to be glad, ha-sati. Ha-seti is a causative, ha-sati is the indicative. Ha-seti means to make love, to make someone laugh, to gladden. So it's a verb meaning, it's causative because the sensor is spontaneous. It is something spontaneous. You just kind of think happy. You think of your meditation, happy moments, you feel happy. Right? So to feel happy is a habit. To feel negative is a very easy thing. So many things around us to be unhappy with. That's the nature of the world. Those people who don't like suffering, and understandably most of us don't like the term suffering, we don't like to be reminded of suffering because there's too much of it, we experience too much of it. But that's the reality. The moment we step out from this room, after listening to this talk, you have to deal with the world. A lot of things may not be satisfactory. You might not be happy with the things you see around you. And when you're in meditation, you just let go of those perceptions of the world. We leave behind this unhappiness, so to speak. We learn to be spontaneously happy and joyful by recalling to mind some happy things. For example, cultivating loving kindness, or simply smiling in our meditation when we meditate. The smiling helps us to attract positive energy. We are capable of doing that as human beings, so we should use that ability, that facility. The commentary also says that this factor, skill in attaining samadhi, refers to knowing and resorting to suitable food and suitable climate. Okay, this is a bit kind of mundane. You must know what kind of food to take, the right place for meditation, not too hot, not too cold. Of course, you can find such a place, it's wonderful. That is why you find a lot of monks, they are looking for forest retreats. They want to build forest retreats so that you can meditate peacefully in the forest. Of course, if you are a serious meditator, you will not start struggling to build a retreat center. You just do your meditation. You can stay anywhere in the cave or tree, and then one day someone may come and say, I'd like to give you a piece of land and so on. That may or may not happen. I think one of the troubling trends today is a lot of monks are really carried away by the idea they must start a center, and they spend a lot of their time getting worried about money. Even forest monks, they're very worried about money. First you have a piece of land, and next thing you have to build kutis, huts, cells for meditation, you have to build your facilities, you have to take care of the land, you have to chase away wild animals, get rid of pests, things like that. And these little creatures do get killed, unfortunately. So you can imagine the kind of work involved. And of course then you need money to maintain such centers. Right? So it's becoming a trend today. Everybody wants to have a retreat center. It's almost like the monks becoming a monk is like going for a retirement plan. You have a nice place in the country to live, supported by public funds. But that should not be the way, because there are enough centers for monks to live together with. Unfortunately, even monks themselves, they have differences of opinions, so they may or may not like each other, so they can't get along with each other, things like that. And the monks tend to put up a friendly front so that devotees will support them. And it is a human aspect of the monastics. So it's very important that monastics remember the Vinaya, their training, their teachings of loving kindness, of harmony, samadhi, going the same way, and so on, the fellowship. So that there's a lot of this common sharing, because a monastery, forest retreat belongs to the fourfold Sangha. This is not a Mahayana center. Mahayana centers normally belong to the particular monk, a particular lineage. But here, technically speaking, the retreat center of the early Buddhists belong to the Sangha of the four directions. In the early Buddhist teachings, the term uses Chatudissa, the four directions. Later on in Mahayana, the words became bigger. The Sangha of the 10 directions, above, below, and so on. I'm not sure Sangha above means what or Sangha below means what. The point is, the Sangha of the four directions sounds quite sufficient. So the meaning here is that if you are a properly ordained monk or nun, you're welcome in the respective places in the monastery or nunnery. So this is a suitable place. It should be a suitable place for meditation, in other words. It's a friendly place, a beautiful place, a non-political place, a place of loving kindness. And one of the most beautiful things about a retreat center is you find the animals nearby, the birds. They're all part of this wonderful community. I've lived in a number of such communities before, and one of the things I love noticing is how the animals and the birds, they live in harmony with the community. For example, during mealtime, you see these birds coming because they know there's food. And then after that, when the monks rest for the afternoon, everything is quiet after mealtime, and the birds are also gone. They're also quiet. And if you're in Australia, you'll see even kangaroos coming, and even cats are there, dogs are there, all coming for their alms food also. I mean, the last life they really practiced the precepts well, but they were kind and generous, so now they're reborn as animals in a monastery, well taken care of. So basically, it's a really beautiful place to live in, whether you're a monk or a layman, because the monastery also need lay people to take care of the place. So then it should be a conducive place for meditation, in other words. So when you live in such a conducive place, then of course you easily build up your skill in attaining samadhi, because the place is so peaceful, so beautiful. You just sit there, nothing disturbs you, even the noise of nature helps you to meditate. You feel really good. And so this is the meaning of a suitable place, suitable climate. And of course, suitable climate also means dress properly, and so on. The robe is a very versatile piece of clothing. You can double up your robe if it's cold, because you can wear some kind of suitable t-shirt or something to keep you warm underneath. You can also cover your bald head if necessary. And of course, suitable food. If you are doing meditation, eating too much food is to your disadvantage. You're going to get very sleepy, and you have to be running to the toilet more often. So normally the monks would just take at the most 2 meals a day, one breakfast and one lunch. But the monks, anyway, because modern monks tend to be a little more active than the monks of the Buddha's time, they also take some light tea, like a couple of biscuits and some drinks in between breakfast and lunch. In the evenings, they may take drinks, or perhaps the people may spoil them with some chocolates and cheese, which are fattening actually. But here again, depends on how active you are. If you are a serious meditator, you find you don't need so much energy, but with all these wonderful energies inside you. So we adjust accordingly. Okay? So this is suitable food. Your body will tell you, it's enough for me, or this kind of food is not so helpful to me. Right? So you adjust yourself accordingly. Your body will tell you. When you do your meditation, you improve your meditation, you become more sensitive to your body, and you learn to respect it more. that way. Now we are talking about mundane preparations here. So if you really want to be skilled at attaining samadhi, you got to know what it is. So this is where it is helpful, even vital, to learn the suttas, to read up suttas about samadhi. For example, this kind of suttas, Himavanta suttas and so on, and it will help you to understand better what samadhi means, how to cultivate samadhi. Sutta learning is very important because it gives you the vocabulary explaining what happens when you meditate. I mean, if you do not know the suttas at all, then you do your meditation, lots of wonderful things happen and you do not know what they are. But if you do have a good teacher, that's very helpful too. And this teacher will be able to help you, explain to you what your experience mean and how to go on from there. So you need a good teacher and you need the suttas. And here I recommend only the early suttas. Avoid the later teachings, Mahayana suttas or Vajrayana suttas. They're meant for other traditions. So if you belong to those traditions, that's fine. But if you really want to do early Buddhist practice as taught by the Buddha, you can humbly attain all these wonderful levels as mentioned in the early suttas. So the suttas help us to understand what goes on in meditation. Also gives us a vocabulary to express our practice and also to teach others when the occasion arises. Now, of course, now on the other side, let's say you are the student, you are the meditator, and you find this teacher that you are with doesn't have a very good command of language. Maybe you perceive that his dharma is not very deep either. But that doesn't matter, because if you listen carefully to him, he has some very wonderful tips to give you in terms of practice. Because not all meditators are what I call Dhamma experts, but they definitely have a direct experience in the practice. It's just like someone who knows how to drive very well. Someone might even be an F1 driver, but he doesn't write books and he doesn't know how the machines work in detail. But he's able to give you tips how to drive safely and so on. For example, one of my friends who drives this high-speed car, I don't think he drove any F1 cars, but he told me something interesting from a teacher's, his driving instructor's point of view. He says when you're driving like over 250 kilometers an hour, you're driving very fast, and you have this person sitting beside you, and this person asks you, what speed are you driving? You're not going to look down at your speedometer and tell you, oh, I'm driving at 300 kilometers per hour. That will be the end of it, because if you just, hit something, even a small stone in this car will just kind of go off the road and it will crash. It will be the end of the car and the people in it. So he says you either say, okay, just look yourself, or just think my number and just say it. And you got to keep your eyes in front all the time while you're driving this speeding car. And that's very good advice for meditators. You just keep your attention on the meditation object, on the nimitta, if you like, on the breath, on loving kindness. And you don't direct or misdirect your mind elsewhere. Now the second quality, second skill in remaining in samadhi. Right? So we have attained the level of calmness, and how to stay there, how to maintain that calmness. But here, assuming that when we reach this level, we have overcome the 5 mental hindrances, because those are what are really hindering us from our practice. So in other words, we've got to keep our mind on the meditation object, the nimitta. Here nimitta has many meanings. One of the meaning is meditation object, let's say the breath. And when the bright light appears, that's also called nimitta. So there is an article on nimitta SD 19.7, if you like to read in details, 19.7. So here we have to learn to let go of sensual desires by calming all our senses, letting go of all the sense experiences, gently, sit down calmly, close our eyes and so on. And then we fill ourselves with loving kindness. One of the first things you should do when you come to a new place is to practice, is to show loving kindness, to kind of make the place feel good. And it also helps us to overcome ill will, anger, or maybe we feel something is missing, or something we forgot something. So it doesn't matter. Loving kindness. And then we build up this loving kindness so that a joyful interest, zest, arises. And this zest overcomes restlessness and remorse, the third mental hindrance. In fact, when we are joyful, we have some level of joyful interest, we also clear away tiredness, sloth and torpor, the fourth mental hindrance. And so when our mind becomes very clear, we also clear away doubts about ourselves, whether I can meditate or I can't meditate, or we don't start thinking about philosophical issues in Buddhism. We just let go of all mental discursiveness, in other words. So we clear away doubts. So all the five mental hindrances are cleared away. There's a sutta called the Chittana Karaniya Sutta. There is no need for willing or willpower in meditation. In meditation, we just let go being a busybody. Let go telling ourselves, I want to do this, I want to do that. We don't even say, I want to be enlightened, or, because that's a thought. We don't say, I want to attain samadhi, that's the thought. We don't want anything in meditation. Remember, meditation, my favorite way of saying it is, it is the true form of renunciation. If you are a monk and you don't meditate, you are not a renunciant. You are just a priest. A true renunciant becomes one in meditation. Because in meditation, first we renounce the body when we sit calmly, very peacefully, calming down our five senses. And then we renounce our feelings, letting go of the feelings of judging, liking, disliking. That is letting go of the sexual desire, right? And then letting go of our thoughts bit by bit, letting go. It's like freeing the birds on Vaisakhi. Let them all go. We liberate them with loving kindness. We also let go of our pain. We smile at them. And then finally, the dharmas arise in us. We notice certain teachings and permanence become clearer, and the Four Noble Truths and so on. We let them come, we let them go. These are the four focuses of mindfulness, the four satipatthanas. When we are working the four satipatthanas, they are stages of deep spiritual renunciation. So when we go into even a single sitting of meditation at home, remember, even as a layperson, you are practicing nekkhamma, renunciation. You don't have to be a monk or a nun. But if you're a monk or a nun, then you're going deeper into your own practice. This is a wonderful way of expediting your own journey towards awakening. So in other words, in meditation, we simply observe what's going on. Because some teachers like to call it bare awareness. It's just simply be there, watching it, if you like, smiling at whatever arises, until your mind becomes peaceful. There's nothing to do, nothing to think about. Be just at peace with yourself. So here again, the skill is remaining in meditation. Okay? So you feel, there are beginners who tell me that they feel very peaceful, and they say they don't know what to do with it. Well, you do nothing with the peacefulness. That's the first answer. The second answer maybe is to smile at it, if you like. Just gently smile at it. Do nothing, and just try to stabilize it, maintain it. So one way of stabilizing it, just gently smiling at it, showing it loving kindness. And number two is to maybe you can say the words joyful, or peaceful, depending on the situation. And just And when you feel good, don't say anything. Right? And of course, when thoughts do come, you gently direct your mind to the thoughts and say, let go, let go. So these are some ways of stabilizing the peacefulness on a very simple level. So here, just let the stillness grow and grow. And just sit there, and then you find when it's so peaceful, you don't do anything. And you stay like that. If you do it well, you can stay like that for hours. Then you find you are in deep concentration, maybe even jhanas. But if you can't do that, it's okay. It's more likely you will not be able to maintain that peace at once, at the start, if you're a beginner. Okay? That's the way it is. I mean, you don't see a baby born and then straight away walking. In the case of the story of Buddha, yes, we do hear that, but as a rule, we don't see that sort of thing happening. Toddlers learn to walk, and meditation is just like that. We learn to walk and never give up. So here, if we do have difficulty, meaning the peace and the stillness is gone, it's all right. It means you have reached your time limit. Your duration of stillness has reached its end. It's all right, it's permanent. Then go on to do some other kind of meditation. Something like even walking meditation. In other words, vary your practice. Then when you're ready again, sit again. Right? Sometimes we are tired. And sometimes we need a rest. So, when you are tired, you rest. When you're hungry, you eat something, or you're thirsty, drink some water. When you hear nature's call, you answer it. So that's how we live in a very respectful way in meditation. We respect our body and the rest. There will come a time, of course, when you may be challenged like the Bodhisattva during his Dukkarakiriya days, during the struggles of his very difficult yoga practices. But we don't really need to go that far, like sitting and forcing ourselves to sit long hours. It's not necessary. You can try bit by bit and see how far you go if you like, but don't force yourself, because you do not know what the consequences will be unless you're a really experienced person. And here I'm talking mostly to beginners, so I wouldn't advise that kind of superhuman effort, so to speak. That can be left for later on. Okay? Now the next skill is coming out of samadhi, coming out of your meditation. In other words, here, you will notice as you continue with your meditation over some period that after a while you don't really need a clock anymore. You can more or less time yourself, but you won't know unless you have a clock in front of you. We are so used to a clock now, a watch, But remember, in the Buddha's time, there were no clocks and watch the kind we have. So people just have a sense of time in general. And they have a very general sense of time those days. They never worry about time. There are only 3 hours in the... no, actually, let me correct that. There are only 2 hours in the daytime. There is the forenoon and there is the afternoon. So you have the whole morning and the whole afternoon to meditate, so to speak. Right? And in the night, they have what they call 4 quarters. No, 3 quarters, isn't it? The first, middle quarter, last quarter. So in a sense, one day has got 5 hours, if you like. So, or they call watches or hours. Today we call hours. So people are not concerned about time as the way we are today. Nowadays we measure time in more detailed ways, but we have less time, ironically. Anyway, my point is that when you're meditating and you do this over time, you begin to have a better sense of your biological clock, your body clock. So you more or less sit and you know when you come out of it, that's the time you want. But you do this by telling yourself, when you start meditating, you say, okay, I'm going to sit for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 1 hour. Okay? So you kind of tell yourself, you determine, it's like you're setting your body clock. And if you keep on doing this, you're likely to, your mind is likely to listen to you. If you're not sure, then have a have a digital clock in front of you so you can keep track of time. So here, the idea is simply to be a bit disciplined, even with sleep, right? For example, you can try the timing with sleep also. When you lie down to sleep, then you say, okay, I'm going to wake up before sunrise. You don't have to be too exact at first. All right, I'm going to get up before sunrise. Then later on, when you become more good at timing yourself, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and so on. So you find you actually can time yourself. Okay. So this is where you begin to master your own body and mind. Of course, the timing here may not be exact because you may kind of be a few minutes off the time, so it doesn't really matter. Point 4, skill in keeping fit for samadhi. How to, in a sense, enjoy your meditation. So you could just move on smoothly with your practice. Here the Anguttara commentary says you should be adaptable, happy and bright. Right here, as I already mentioned earlier this point. Here, in other words, you need to be versatile in your practice. Sometimes if you use only one method, let's say the breath, after a point you might get tired. Because the mind somehow tends to become bored with familiarity. This is where familiarity breeds contempt, as it were. We begin to feel bored with the same object. So it's helpful, skillful to vary the practice. In other words, when you find watching the breath a bit tiresome, you can switch to loving kindness. But here the commentary says you should know the different kinds of kasina. The kasina meditation is using natural phenomena. Two very famous ones are the light kasina and space kasina. For example, you are sitting, meditating in the forest, you're facing the east like the Buddha during his awakening, and the sun is rising, very bright, beautiful, and this sun is coming up above the mountains or on the horizon, especially on the horizon, or the sea, the ocean, and you see this bright light in front of you. So you, of course, don't step right into the sun, just of the brightness. Be aware of the brightness, and then mentally note, bright, right? And picture, record the brightness in your mind. In essence, that is the practice of like kasina. You have this beautiful brightness in your mind, and if you are sleepy at night, when you're meditating, you can visualize this light kasina, for example. And also in the same place, you can, on this bright day, you can visualize the space around you. Be aware of the spaciousness all around you. Space. This is where you do it with open eyes, of course. And then you close your eyes. Be aware of the space. 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 Spaciousness. And you feel the spaciousness. This helps you to feel very relaxed and spacious. And there are color kasinas. Because here the later meditators after the Buddha's time, they tell us how to make color kasinas, kind of round little discs like that of certain colors, okay, that will help you in your meditation. So not all colors. So this is psychology of colors actually. You find a color that suits you. You feel it helps in your meditation, and then you can practice it. So these are kasinas. Kasina actually refer to devices in meditation. Or you can actually just use any natural colors like the Mahaparinibbana Sutta talks about kasinas. For example, yellow flowers, or red flowers, or blue flowers. So you see those flowers and use them for color meditation, choosing the color that helps you with your focusing of your mind. If you want to read more about kasinas, you can look up the article on Bhavana in SD 15.1, section 9.2. So here, keeping fit for samadhi also means taking good care of your body. As you become more aware of your body, you learn to respect your body, and responding to the weather, answering nature's call, things like that. And also knowing when to take your food and when to cut down on food, things like that. Of course, during retreats, normally we take just enough food, so I think the amount of food is not so much of a problem. Remember, it's easier to meditate when you're hungry than when you are full, because when you're full, you tend to be very sleepy. So here, know when to take a break, when to just stretch yourself, to do a bit of walking meditation, or just to move around calmly, mindfully walking, admiring nature, observing nature all around you and seeing beautiful things. And that, remember those happy moments that help you in your meditation also. Then the fifth skill in samadhi resort. So here we must know what kind of meditation helps us, what kind of object or how to adjust the object, strategy in meditation in other words. This is a kind of follow-up for what I said earlier, how to vary your meditation. So it's good to know a few basic meditation methods. And among these, of course, two of the most famous would be breath meditation. I think it's good to start with breath meditation. Some people start with loving kindness meditation, which is also alright depending on your personality. If you are a very sociable person, it's easier to start with loving kindness meditation. If you are by nature a calm and quiet person, breath meditation is an easy way to start. And try to balance this out. If you like breath meditation, then that is your base meditation. You start there, you build your practice there. But it also means you need to build up your loving kindness, that kind of outward, more unconditionally accepting kind of feeling. You need that too. Otherwise, if you're very calm and quiet and you don't like people, they're very noisy, things like that. If you like loving kindness, you feel calm and happy, yes. But then you need to learn to be more calm, not just happy. Right? So, end your meditation with the other practice, even for a few minutes. Right? And slowly you build up both of them in harmony. Another good meditation to know is the four elements meditation, which is not difficult to do. There is a sutta, the Rahula Sutta, which the Buddha taught, and where the Buddha taught the four elements to the young Rahula. Earth, water, fire, wind, right? We reflect on the earth element in our body or the solid parts. For example, the hardness of the teeth, the bones, skin. The five reflections are famous. Head, hair, body hair, nail, teeth, skin. That's what we are, earth element. And then you reflect on the water element. We are mostly water element. Saliva, sweat, tears, and so on. And then the fire element, body warmth. You can feel the warmth in your body. Reflect on that. And this fire element is also decay from day one that we are born. This fire starts burning. Even now, that this fire keeps us warm. The fire is also our digestive process and so on. This fire element, including oxidation. Of course, we know that today. And then the last element is the wind element. The wind, the breath that comes in, goes out, and then we go on to the breath meditation. Okay. The four elements meditation is a very wonderful meditation because it helps us in bringing wisdom to us in terms of insight, according to Rahula Sutta. The practice is very simple. First, you identify the element in your body, earth, water, fire, wind. This is internal element. And there is this external earth, water, fire, wind element. Internal, external. Okay? So here's a kind of ecological awareness. In other words, you begin to connect internal earth element, external earth element all around you. Then the third point is they are all impermanent, reflection on impermanence. So these are the 3 points you have to remember when you practice the 4 elements. And later on, you can get a teacher to teach you walking the elements. In other words, as you walk, you can also reflect on the 4 elements in your steps. Okay, so these are various variations to your meditation to make it more interesting. Now, so that's keeping fit to it in your samadhi. So, of course, you can also be aware of your body as you are meditating. Some numbness, a pain arising, just be aware of them. You begin to know your body better, and some insight will arise as you reflect in that way. So, now this skill in samadhi resort also means going to the right places, right kind of people. There are rules in a meditation retreat, right? So it's good if you can to go for a retreat, especially where you have an experienced and compassionate and a virtuous teacher teaching you. And if you are in such a retreat, most of the things are done for you. And there'll be rules to make the place feasible for meditation. There'll be the right kind of food for you, and the place normally is a quiet and peaceful and beautiful place. So you just need to follow the rules. If you're not sure what to do during a retreat, you can always consult a seasoned meditator, ask them what to do, and then they will tell you. And there are some simple rules, of course. For example, if you want to do a retreat on your own, solitary retreat, you can look for a quiet place, a safe, quiet place, especially in the mountains or seaside, some quiet place, and then stay there on your own. Make sure you have enough food, canned food, and simple cooking utensils, and proper clothing and some first aid to maybe insect repellents, things like that, to help yourself. So the first thing you must do when you go to such a place, first thing is radiate metta, loving kindness to the place. May all the beings here be well and happy. So that this place you are going to gives you a good feeling. The next thing is go around and check how safe is the place, which spots to avoid, which are not safe, don't go there. And then look for the beautiful spots, right, or beautiful times of the day. Maybe sunrise, sunset. So go around, scout the place, have a good sense of the place, and then you are ready. Okay. Another important thing is when you go on retreat, when you are doing your meditation, be careful not to bring your old world with you. Of course, nowadays, for example, we always carry our handphones around with us, so make sure you switch off your handphone. Make it a rule never to turn on your handphone until the end of the retreat. The world can wait. You are going to meditate, the world can wait. So, remember here again, when you sit for meditation or going to retreat, you're going to renounce the world. Have that kind of idea in your mind, and then you find your practice is more effective that way. And finally, skill in samadhi resolution. Here, how to refine our meditation. So in other words, go on practicing, if you can, until you attain first jhana. So here you have to understand what are the jhanas, right? How to build up your jhanas. So here's where you can read this article on jhana, SD 8.4. SD 8.4. And so you're more familiar with all those jhana factors and so on and so forth. Here again, don't be too concerned whether you have attained jhana or not. Don't be so fanatical about it. I want to get jhana. That won't help. You really must be kind to yourself, very humble to yourself. Be like a doormat in meditation, so that the cell is punctured and bursts. Then you look back during your review period and say, oh yes, I've attained jhana. or at least I feel very peaceful, very good. It's not the attaining of jhana that's the big thing here. It is this joy and peace that brings you wisdom. That's the great thing. Because even if you don't attain jhana, you still can awaken as a non-return, as a once-returner, or as a streamer, if you constantly practice the perception of impermanence. If you can get concentration, you can get jhana, that's even better still. But it's not a necessity in other words. But if you're a monk or a nun, and you have renounced the world, then you have to try your best to practice in such a way that you will attain jhana, because the life of a renunciant, a full-time renunciant, is conducive for such a practice. Even such a practice is incumbent upon that kind of life. So, in other words, let us ask the question: do we need jhana to awaken? Of course, here very simply we can say yes, we need jhana if you want to attain arahathood or non-return, because you have to let go of sensual pleasures in every sense of the word, no sexuality of any kind. On the other hand, no, you don't need jhana if you practice as a layman. In other words, we simply practice to overcome the first three fetters, or self-identity view, attachment to rituals and vows, and doubt, to attain stream winning and one's return. So it depends what sort of practice you want to do. The important thing is just go on practicing, learn to calm yourself. So whether you are a renunciant or a layperson, you learn to simply enjoy your meditation, put joy into your meditation. If you can do that, then you will succeed in your meditation. Above all, you will attain spiritual liberation in this life itself. So, there you are. We're finished with this. So now let us do a short reflection to end this study. The Buddha's teaching reminds us how to discipline our body and speech in preparation for mental cultivation, so that we attain liberating wisdom. These are very precious teachings which are still available, and we have to treasure these teachings when we find them, so that we can directly understand ourselves and use that knowledge to awaken ourselves in this life itself. This reflection is very wonderful, good karma. Better power of such good karma, may we attain calmness and joy and peace and success in a good way in this life itself. Through our faith in the three jewels and the various good deeds we have been doing, may we attain spiritual liberation, especially stream winning in this life itself. In this moment of peace also, let us send our loving kindness to all those people that have taught us the Dharma, to all our loved ones, to our friends, even those inimical to us. May they all be well and happy. May they be filled with loving kindness and come closer to the Dharma so that they themselves awaken. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.